So far, I have created a simple function that is going to be called collect movie info. So I defined a function in my program and I tested it by using the following parameters. So the function is going to take the following arguments here from the user, the following parameters: movie title, director, year. So in other words, if I'm calling the function, I need to provide those strings of information. And here in genre, it's going to be a list, Python list. And these will be assigned to appropriate keys. So if the first one is called movie title, it'll be assigned to the key title here with this statement. Second is going to be director's name, which will be assigned to key director, and so on and so forth. So now I need to actually carefully think about the steps I wanted to do one by one in order to create a record of the movie and store it. So what's the first thing that I need to do to use that function in the first place? Well, the user input is quite critical, so let's just make a note. Take user's input. It'll be movie information. And that information needs to be store users information in the dictionary. And that dictionary is called, again, type in dictionary. That dictionary is called collect movie info. So obviously I need to provide appropriate pieces of information which are listed in the parentheses. So once the dictionary is created, and this dictionary needs to be append the dictionary to the list movies. So I need to have a list with the movies. So I've decided to keep the list of movies in the Python as a dictionary. So the elements of the list will be dictionaries. And maybe check if it worked. And that's going to be a step that is going to be basically verifying that what I've done so far worked. And then finally store information in the JSON file, so it's not lost after I finished my entering the movie information. Okay, so I know I need a list, Python list, that will be storing information. So let's go back to our program and maybe do a little bit of cleaning here. First of all, I will have at the very top variables and data structure. So I know I need a Python list that will store elements, dictionaries, empty list called movies. So that's going to be my variables and data structure so far. The next, obviously, I'll have a bunch of functions that will be called from the program. And the reason I'm doing functions because not those pieces of code, like making this dictionary, collecting movie info, will be done multiple times, and I don't want to repeat the same lines on and on and on and on. So here I'm going to have comments, function definitions. And this is my first function I have here. So, okay, so let's tackle the first step. Take user's input, movie information. How do we do that? And for that, I'm going to create another function, but think first about what data types, what variables do I need to provide from the user to actually create a dictionary? Well, the ones that are in the parentheses, clearly. Let's recall how we create information or take users input. Well, there's going to be an input function And I'm gonna start off, it'll be under function definitions, but for now let's think about this. So we need a movie title. Movie title is the first parameter in the function that will be assigned to key title. So I'm gonna say movie title, and I'll make this into a function in just a minute. Input, you know what, actually we can say print, maybe starting with new line, and we'll say I will say provide the following information. Okay, so that's going to be the first line that is going to be displayed. New line, this /n stands for new line, so it'll start with a new line. Then it will display provide the following information, and then we're going to be taking the input one by one. So the first is going to be movie title. We'll make a space so it's nice when it's presented to the user. And that's the first thing we need to type in as a user's input. The next one, in turn, is a director that'll be later on associated with the director key in my dictionary. So I'll need to say director. By the way, this could be a different word, but for consistency's sakes, I'm going to use the same ones. And again, I'm going to say input director space and close the bracket. And the next one is year. Year will equals to take the user input year. The next one will be rating. That's actually parent rating, right? Rating is going to be input parent rating, like PG or R or something like that. And the next one is length of the movie. And again, we'll take input. So every time we say input, the program will stop asking user for input. Length. And finally, we're going to ask for genre. And genre, well, this should be a list of keywords. So I want to make a list out of it. So I'll say genre, actually, words separated with comma. Okay, that'll work. So now save that because I don't want to lose it now. And once I have that information taken from the user and stored in my variables, so every time the user types something in, it'll be stored in the variables respectively. Movie title, director's name, and so on and so forth. I want to send that information to my function. So I need to do two things here. I want to say, you know what? Once it's done, take all those pieces of information stored in all these and call that function collect movie info. But here's the thing I need to do. Once I call this, actually, let's make it already part of a function. So how do I make a function out of what I've already done here? Well, I need to define the name, and it'll be collect user data. And I will have no parameters because I'll just call that, and the function itself is going to be asking user for the input here, right? Once it is done, I'm going to call another function to place those pieces of information into a dictionary, and that function is already defined here. But obviously, as of right now, this is not going to work because the function, which is the definition, name of the function, potential parameters, colon, all the body of the function must be indented 4 spaces here. So let's just make that indentation now. And there it is. So once I call that function, so I'll be calling that function somewhere from the program. The program will be down here, right? Excuse me. Let's remove that line. So take user's input. So I'll be just calling function from my program. So this is a program actually. Let's make it a program here. Code. So how do I call this function? I'll just say collect user data. So that is going to basically go to this line, which is defined as a function, and will print that thing, and it'll do movie title, input, assigned to title, director variable, will ask user for director's name, and so on and so forth. Now this is going to be basically called from the main code. But I want to be consistent with my function definition, so I will add into the function a docstring which explains what the function is doing, collecting user information about a movie. Right? So here I am, and now what I need to do that, after I've collected all those pieces of information, so this function is going to jump or call another function to provide the information for this function, those pieces, to create the actual dictionary. But I want to store that dictionary and return back to the code so it's not lost. So how do I do that? Well, I need to create a, let's say, movie info. So that's going to be the variable which will be actually represented by the dictionary that is going to be returned from this function. So once I collected information from the user, I'll send those pieces of information into this function. So from this function we'll jump to another function, create a dictionary, return the dictionary, and store in this variable. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to call collect movie info, and so that is basically, once the line by line is done, we've collected all the pieces of information, we're going to collect this movie info, which means we're going to call this function. So we need to provide all these parameters here, right? So if I, let's say, just copy and paste, I'm gonna jump here, 4 lines of indentation. What's following is a year, is rating, length. This function knows those because user already provided that info, and genre. So once I do that, all these pieces of information stored in those variables are here now, are sent to this function. So we're calling the collect movie info function. So all these pieces of information will be provided here and then assigned to appropriate keys, title, director, year, and so on and so forth. But once it is done, so once the code jumps and provides the information, so from this point onwards, we are actually inside this function. We're assigning those pieces of information to the keys. Now we need to return from this function, collect movie info, back to this one, which called a function. So function calls another function. After return, we're back to the originating function. And we need to store information in movie info. So that function needs to return the dictionary it just created. So it will say, once those pieces of information have been provided and assigned into a dictionary, we will return movie info, because that's what we called our dictionary, movie info. So that will be stored in here. So we took the user's input, we called a function, provided the information to the function uses that information to create a dictionary, returns that dictionary, which will be stored into this variable, which is now a dictionary. So once it is done, I'm going to see what's my next step. I'm going to append that dictionary to the list movies, and I've already created the list movies here. So actually I should rename that function, in fact, maybe to create dictionary. Let's call it create movie information, and I'll call this function create movie information. That's probably a more appropriate name. So I'm going to have create movie information. So my main code is going to call that function create movie information. So from this point onwards, so this is where my code starts, and that name is calling the function create movie information. So my program jumps. Where is that create movie information? Whoa, it's right here. Takes no parameters. It's gonna display that line, takes the user input, store in the variables. Once it's done, it's gonna call another function. So it jumps from this point onwards to this function, assigns those pieces of information we collected and sent to this function. You see, this function expects them to appropriate keys. Then that function goes back to the place where it was called, so that return info will be now all those pieces of information, dictionary, stored into this dictionary. So that is actually going to be now dictionary. And the last step I want to do is to append that dictionary to movies list. So I'm going to say the last line of my code in this function is going to be, since I already have the movie info inside the dictionary, I'll send the dictionary to movies append, and we'll learn how to append element to the list. This time it's a dictionary, and we're going to say movie info. So just a crude verification. So we took the user's inputs, created the dictionary. So that step is done inside this create movie information, and we did append this dictionary to the list movies. So now let's just print, without any fancy schmancy loop, just to see if that actually worked. Print movies, and that movies is my list up the top, into which we appended the dictionary. So now the testing the code, save it, and run Python 3 and movie collection. So we'll run the code and see if it works. Okay, so far so good. It's asking me for the title. So what just happened here? Well, the dictionary is going to be created because I called the function create movie information. So the code jumped to create movie information here and print it in the first line exactly what I see on the screen. Provide the following information. Then it asks me, user, for movie title. And it'll be assigned to movie title here. Let's do that. Let's create maybe Alien. Director, that's Ridley Scott. Year 1979. Parent rating, that was an adult movie, so R. Length 157 hours, if memory serves. And genre, now this is going to be a horror and sci-fi. There we go. So what happened is basically it took all my information, that function called collect movie info function, which populated all those parameters or arguments we sent to the collect movie, assign them to the dictionary, return the dictionary back to this function stored in movie info, and then we append it to our list at the very top here, created, empty initially, all those pieces of information.